I found this article to be quite interesting. The article talks about the constant use of cell phones and social media use among children and youth. The article is mainly talking about the relation between children and youth using social media and their mental health. It mentions the suicide rates among 15 to 19-year-olds have gone up and are questioning if this relates to the social media usage. I find it interesting that this article is constantly looking at the negative effects of social media. It does try to mention how social media may not be the only cause, but this is only mentioned briefly, while the rest of the article is focused on how social media could lead to mental illness and such in children and youth. The topic of this article is children and youth, yet they use an example of a study which is done with adults. The way adults use social media and the way children and youth do is going to be different, so it could have produced different results. It would have connected better to the topic of the article if they used adolescents and had them not use their cell phones for a week. This article talks about the constant use of cell phones, which can relate to Boyd's chapter on addiction, and it mentions how this is just new ways of communicating and is not necessarily addiction. It's just a way of keeping touch with people. This article can relate to the UNCRC because the UNCRC consists of different principles, and there's protection and participation. Children and youth should be allowed to participate online, to express themselves there, socialize, and be informed through the online world, and at the same time be protected as well, in the sense that children and youth need to be able to communicate with their parents when something happens to them online, for example bullying, so they can get help, or if they see these lavish materialistic things that their friends have, they could have ways to cope with what they are feeling when this happens. I believe mental health is a very important topic and one that society is starting to becoming more open to discussing. Some things I've noticed while online, whether it be Tumblr or YouTube, is that when someone mentions how they've been depressed or considered suicide before, they get flooded with comments from strangers helping them. They have this community of people who will support and help you, which could be a positive factor of social media use. Like the article mentions, I believe it depends on a person. Some people might get affected by the things more than others. Some people need this constant connection to people to feel happy and turn to social media, while other people may not need as much. This article does an okay job of talking about social media and connections to mental health. However, it fails to recognize what children and youth have to say about this topic themselves. It was only at the end that the reader gets to hear what a high school student thinks about this topic, and the student does show that she understands what social media can do in relation to people posting the lavish lifestyles. And she's already thinking of ways to avoid and remind herself that everything you see online is only one perspective, just like this article is doing.